I think his statement this evening was really interesting. I'll explain a bit more why in a second, but let me just tell you some of what he said in that statement. He said that these events have been a real nonsense and tarnished a well-deserved victory for our players and our country. He also condemned any macho attitude. On the surface, that's kind of broadly in line with what everyone has been saying about Luis Rubiales' behaviour. However, Jorge Vilda, the head coach of the women's national team, is a big ally of Rubiales', and he himself has had his own dispute with some of the players in the past. Rob was referencing it in his report there. It was almost a year ago now. Players were speaking out about his management style, the atmosphere he was creating, and talking about the impact it was having on their emotional and physical well-being. What was the response from the Spanish FA at the time? Well, the women were threatened with not being selected for games and told to apologise for having misspoken. Of course, then, as until very recently, Luis Rubiales was the head of the Spanish FA. Fast forward to what's going on now with this non-consensual kiss with Jenni Hermoso, and it's quite a different story. The Spanish FA did try to take quite a similar approach initially, threatening Jenni Hermoso with legal action. But there has been quite a big backlash to all of this. Of course, the situation now is very different. Many people will not have heard of that dispute between Jorge Vilda and the women's team last year. This has got a lot of publicity. Everyone's seen that picture of Luis Rubiales grabbing Jenni Hermoso around the head and kissing her. And there has been a big backlash. And of course, now Luis Rubiales has been suspended. And I think for him personally, there's not really any coming back from this when it comes to his leadership at the Spanish FA. You've got the Spanish government concerned, not least about how all this looks when it comes to Spain's bid for the 2030 World Cup. We've now got people calling for kind of wider reform of the management and the team around the Spanish national women's squad. But I think this is also a kind of moment. We talk about Me Too moments following what happened in Hollywood. I think this is a moment not just for the Spanish women's team. I think it's a moment for women's sport and for Spanish society more generally, following kind of protests in recent years around sexual violence and reforms that have been made by the government around gender equality.